right, well, it's 6 o'clock and it's time to start our General Government Part 2 committee meeting. We're going to be talking about water and stormwater rates, and apparently this is a hot topic because this place is packed, even with council members. Oh, dear. So let's start with roll call.
All right, Councilmember Cochran, absent. Councilmember Gonzalez, absent. Councilmember Hamrick.
Here.
Councilmember Jaquez, absent. Councilmember Meisner, absent. Councilmember Turner, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Troutman.
Here.
All right, let's go ahead and start with, well, are there any announcements before we go? I know we have the Highway 50 meeting tomorrow at 6. I won't be able to attend. I have other meetings. And so, Adam, I was wondering if I do want to get an update on what's going on. Is there a time that I could meet and find out? Because I haven't been able to attend any of those.
Yeah, I'll be out Friday, so catch me early next week, and then, I'll send out information as soon as I have it from the consultant as far as notes and so forth too, but absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to be gone early next week too.
Are you going to have any chance to review the materials and give comment?
Yeah, I can review it.
Okay, all right,
Okay, thank
And
you.
what time is that meeting?
6 o'clock.
It's at 6.
Mm-hmm. And then the community agency funding, that's Friday. What, that starts at?
Friday, we start at 8:30, is that correct? And we go until we're done.
And have you had any confirmations on who is attending that?
From council? Tammy, we have Jim and John, is that correct?
That is correct.
I'll
That's
be
all
there.
I've heard.
Yep.
Okay, and I won't be there. I have to go out of town that day, so. All right, well, thanks, you guys. Let's go ahead and start with our water and stormwater rates.
Could I ask Bob? Go ahead. I know you're probably ordering dinner. Just kidding. Slow day. Okay. All right. And I knew this. I suppose I know. What is this? Says CIP in capital letters. CIP.
Projects,
What?
capital improvement.
Okay.
Could be capital improvement projects as well.
Is your microphone on, Bob?
Nope.
Capital improvement plan or capital improvement
Okay.
project.
Kind of thought that, but I want to make sure.
Sure. You're gonna drive? No. All right. Kind of to bring up some background on this, in 2017, City Council and staff undertook a water rate study with consultant Raftellus, and we asked them to take a look at our water rates, the revenue that it was generating, and the weaknesses that may be in it. It was separated into two parts, of course, water rates, a water rate component, and then a stormwater component. And as far as for the water side, where council had landed on that, there was 4 different scenarios that were looked at in regards to funding more revenue to do projects. The one method was, of course, a cash-only funding and what it would take in rate increases to get to a meaningful point where you had some dollars to work with. Another scenario was to do a combination of cash funding as well as debt. However, that option was quickly ruled out as the water fund is currently carrying debt from its 2008 certificates of participation. The third scenario was, I believe what they call a constrained, is that the way you remember it, Adam? A constrained design in which the water rates would be adjusted by 9%. That 9% initially was going to be based upon a cost of service analysis. So those who use the water would be paying for their fair share of it. And then having some revenue left over to generate some capital monies. And then the fourth option was just a status quo, kind of your normal inflationary type of rate increase, say 3%. What was recommended and from what I remember being adopted by council at that time was the constrained rate design, in which we did that cost of service and looked at individual rate classes. It was not an across-the-board rate increase. Some rate classes actually saw a decrease because based upon the cost of service analysis, it showed that they were paying more than their fair share. And of course, the flip side of that, there were some other rate classes that weren't paying their fair share, mainly the golf course, and there were some city accounts in there as well. And so by adopting that recommendation for the next 4 years after 2018, there would be 9% rate increases. And over that time, it would generate a cumulative total of approximately $12.3 million for these project needs. So in 2018, City Council adopted ordinance late in the year. Don't recall right off the top of my head which the number was. And they did that 9% adjustment. The following year, when we prepared the 2019 budget, administration recommended, I guess, 3%. I really was not privy to those conversations, so I don't know how the 3% was landed at, as opposed to why it wasn't the 9%. But that's what we did. And so to get back on track with that rate study, if, you know, it seems like we believe that it was valid and stuff, that an increase in revenues for 2020, a 9% would provide an estimated annual revenue of, that'd be the increase, Tammy, $6,425,000 as far as the...
The increase would be about 300,000 over what we're anticipating our actuals to be in 19.
This year, okay,
Yeah, so it's
With a 9% increase.
correct.
yes.
Do you have, what do you see for that extra $300,000 where that would be spent?
Oh, it would go quickly if you want to go to the next slide, Tammy. Just alone in water main replacements, we've got right at 144,000 linear feet of 4-inch or less water main in the system that should be replaced with 8-inch. A lot of that water main is of the cast iron variety, and the majority of it, if not all of it, has outlived its useful service life. As a matter of fact, we've had evidence in the past that we're a member of the Centurion Club with the ductile iron pipe folks, in which we actually have cast iron water main in the ground, still being used today, that's over 100 years old. We have a master plan for building the distribution system based upon a design that was done for us by an engineer back in the 90s, late 90s, in which we're building a 12-inch grid. Got about 93,000 linear feet of that water main that needs to be upgraded. We also, back in the early 2000s, we saw, after we built our new 5 million gallon tank out east of town, how we had trouble getting water from the water treatment plant to fill that tank. And the reason was there was the line restrictions going across town. So a couple choices were available to us. We could have installed one very large water main, transmission main, say going down the highway all the way east to the east end of town. However, that was going to be very pricey. Another option was to design a 20-inch, like a transmission grid of the system, which was able to actually do a few things for us. We were able to start coordinating more of our street work with this grid work, and getting the street reconned after we went in and put in some of this larger 20-inch water main. So a couple other items, hogback tunnel maintenance. I don't know if you folks are aware or not, but we have a 20-inch water main that goes through the Skyline Ridge. And I know the last time I was in that neighborhood, we've had, part of it is an actual formed tunnel, more on the west end. This tunnel used to carry a 12-inch cast iron water main and then the Fruitland Ditch supply line. When we abandoned the use of the gorge line in '75, the Fruitland put a pump station in on the hydraulic ditch. And in the early '70s, we went through there and took out the old wooden stave line and put in a 20-inch water main. So we've got a active 20-inch water main in that tunnel. And I know on the east end, it wasn't the formed out of concrete portion, and we've had several cave-ins since then. And if that 20-inch water main were to fail in that tunnel, we would have a hard time getting in there in a timely manner. Matter of fact, we just have to shut it off.
What does that service, the whole town?
No, it services, helps as another feed to the north side. We have the 36-inch water main that comes off the hill, crosses the highway around the corner of the CDOT barnyard. As well, we have another 20-inch that comes in through Veterans Park. So
Could it be abandoned?
I think when Jacobs did that engineering, they were supposed to have sized that 36-inch to be able to handle
Yeah,
that line being offline.
I think once that master plan grid is complete, it could be. That was how it's designed.
What, so, but which master plan are we talking about?
The 12 and 20-inch grid.
Yeah, TEC.
No, I mean, which master plan?
Yeah, TEC did, I'd have to get that information for you, John. It was done in, like, say, in the,
I think it was late 90s, maybe
Late
early
90s.
2000, yeah.
It doesn't exist on the web right now, right?
No.
no.
Okay.
But it would be called a water master plan? It's not a city master plan? What would it be called?
It's the water master plan.
Water master plan?
Yeah.
Okay,
Water distribution system.
okay.
So by upsizing those mains in that grid, then we could eliminate that eventually.
After $40 million plus of projects.
Right.
Yeah, and then you see some water main ditch crossings. We have about 3 or 4 areas where the biggest one that I can think of is out on East Main at the railroad tracks with roads. We've got a bottleneck right there. Kind of hoping maybe a planned project will happen in that intersection with stormwater soon. And then got a couple other hydraulic ditch crossings that would need to be done. And
So,
then,
before we go on,
yep,
to talk about the master plan a little bit, because that's one I don't think I have a copy of or have read, and would like to, that probably should be provided to council, so that we know that. But so that master plan, is the purpose of the master plan to take a planning look at water needs in Canyon City and to estimate the infrastructure needs to support our projections for growth, or am I all on track so far?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah. I believe it, for example, it calls out every quarter mile section, Adam, for 12-inch water mains. Again, the smallest we want to have in the system now is 8-inch. And a 12-inch grid, so every quarter mile by every quarter mile, we'd have these 12-inch grids there. Again, to help bolster and support that distribution system so it can handle the future flows.
So the question that I would have is the, you know, I really kind of need to see the plan, but probably shouldn't waste our time asking you questions about it, but I think that we need to see the plan, because that's where a lot of the rubber's meeting the road here, because that's really where the lion's share of the dollars are directed towards, is constructing that infrastructure to meet the master plan, right?
In a way, so the impetus of that was really 4 Mile Ranch and the Eastern Delivery. And there was a fair amount of that Eastern Delivery that was supposed to happen with the annexation that did not. And this,
So what part of that didn't happen?
so when we speak of the Eastern Delivery, we're talking about transmission mains from the plant all the way east to
4 Mile.
to DOC and 4 Mile, right? And so at that time, they were looking at a very expensive, very large transmission main along the US 50 corridor. And where it landed was that was way too expensive to do. And we knew we had a fair number of water mains in the city that needed replaced anyway. So then that's what brought up this concept of since we know we have to replace these water mains anyway, we can oversize that grid when we replace, and it will serve as the transmission via grid versus one transmission main.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So even though that master plan calls for 12-inch and 20-inch, that is not new install pipe. That is a replacement of a pipe that's smaller and
Right.
older.
Right. And even if we wanted to replace with in-kind, we're still looking at similar dollars. I mean, you know,
Correct. Yeah, the difference in the pipe material is not that much.
is not that much
Yeah.
in terms of what we're talking about spending.
Right.
Yeah, the big expense is getting them in there and getting them to
Right.
excavate the trench.
Thank you.
And next. And then we've also got a lot of aged equipment, mainly at the water treatment plant. Of course, the water treatment plant, basically, you have the 57 vintage stuff, you have the 1974 vintage stuff, and we've got the 1998 vintage stuff. And I think staff has done a great job at maintaining what we've got, but a lot of equipment comes to its end useful life, as well as, for example, you see on there the west filtration, east filtration facility filter media replacement. That's the actual media that's in all of the filter beds. And last time we had completely changed all that stuff out was 1995. And still making good quality water today, but you know, we have good practices there at the water plant as far as on the front end of the system and settling a lot of the solids out. But again, your filters are your final barrier there in the filtration process, and you want to make sure that they're always working good.
Right. And the filter media itself is what type of materials?
Anthracite, filter sand, garnet sand, and then smaller pea gravel rock and to a little larger river rock.
No carbon anywhere?
No, we don't use granular activated carbon.
Yeah. Okay. So those are, if the purpose of the filters is really sediment removal?
No, it's removal of like say, the front end of the process where we do the coagulation, flocculation, sedimentation. That what really settles the majority of the solids out. The filters are there just to kind of remove,
Polishing type of stuff?
well, and viruses, bacteria, that kind of stuff that,
Okay.
you know, small
And-
enough to make it through. light
And
enough.
what, the reason I'm asking these technical questions
Sure.
is because if the last time the materials were changed out in the 90s, waste disposal regulations have changed, especially if you have radionuclides. You know, all water has uranium in it.
Oh, yeah, we see it in our water treatment plant residuals.
Right, and so that's where I'm kind of going with the question. Are we sure that we're not going to have special costs for disposal costs to replace the media this time?
When we did it in 1995, we had the material looked at and there was no concerns then.
That things have changed.
Well, I understand that, but, yeah, I mean,
Do you
in
know
the
what-
industry, I mean, yes, I've heard of folks with really bad radionuclide problems where they wind up with filter media that is,
Licensable is the
yeah,
term.
licensed, you bet.
Licensable.
Yeah, but our water quality as far as based upon what we see in our water treatment plant residuals,
Right,
not like some other folks see.
right, exactly.
Of
Thank you.
course, there's some other things on there as well. One of the projects that we're actually going to work on in 2020 is the high head pump station, low head pump station MCC upgrade project. I apologize for the acronyms. Those are the motor control centers for those two pump stations, originally built in '74. Several years ago, we had to try to find a 1,200 amp breaker for that old Westinghouse switchgear. And I think we paid close to $16,000 for a used breaker because, of course, it's all obsolete now. So if we have some serious issues, those are critical assets. We rely upon them every day. Not to say that we don't have backup, but we rely upon them every day to do their job. Just one other quick one back there that was on there, the sediment, Pond A sediment removal. Again, the large pond that you see at the bottom of the hill, it's not a raw water reservoir, it's a raw water settling pond. It has a purpose. And over the years, since it's been put online, it has been accumulating sediment. And about once every 7 years, we will take that pond offline and remove as much sand as we can from the east bank. But as far as beyond that and out across the pond, we can't get out there unless it's taken offline and dried out for several months. And so I put out a bid to have the pond dredged. And due to the volume of sediment in that pond, we were looking at $1 million just for that, just to remove the sediment that accumulated. So a lot of these are not really, I hate to use the word capital because it's more of truly a maintenance function. It's not increasing the capacity, it's just getting our capacity back to what it originally was. Thank you.
But from an accounting perspective, that would, even though it's kind of a maintenance function, we would treat that as capital, though, would we not in a budget?
In the past, we've been recording those items as capital. We are trying to move O&M, or the operating costs, actually back to the operating budget, just so then you can truly see those
Gotcha.
costs in there.
Another good example is the recoating of our finished water storage tanks. They're steel, and we have to replace those coating systems 15 to 20 years. And we've been going through that the last several years. But again, that's just a maintenance function, but we've been booking it to capital.
Right.
Bob, I had a question about the sediment pond.
Mhm.
Is dredging the only option that we have?
Well, the other option is to be able to take it offline for maybe 6 months or longer, let it dry out, then you can get equipment down in the bottom of that and remove sediment. We actually had, when we did the 2008 certificates of participation, we had a project to rebuild the distribution manifold, the pipeline that comes into that pond and disperses the water. Right now it's buried below grade. It's a steel line that's, going away, corroding. And we also were looking at having the contractor, because the pond would have to be dewatered to do all of that work, to removing the sediment then. And at that time, we didn't have enough money out of the certificates of participation to do that.
Yeah, long-term plan, we would have redundancy in the settling pond. We'd build a secondary pond, which we have plans for that someday, but that would be the only way you could take it offline.
Right.
Would that be in the master plan?
No, not that plan we were talking about.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
No. And Adam's correct. The idea would be to have a smaller raw water settling pond that we can run off in the wintertime, for example, while that bigger one's offline, drying out. It's not lined other than with a bentonite layer, which, I mean, it's, you just allow for once you've removed the sediment, you'd go back in with so many more inches of bentonite to recompact it. and sealer back up.
So
So
is the pond lined right now?
only with bentonite.
But that is considered a liner, and it is
Yes.
functioning to some degree. especially
Yeah,
with the sediment
I
on
would
top.
say over the years, on that east side, I see where we have seepage of groundwater. And
Yeah.
it's probably due to our cleaning method as far as, we hire a contractor who has what they call a long reach excavator. So he can sit up on top of the dike and reach out down in
Right.
there and pull what he can off that manifold pad.
Right.
And when he pulls it back into the toe of that slope, I think
Yeah.
we have probably removed
Pulling them.
bentonite over the
Right.
years.
Right.
So, and this here is mostly a lot of equipment, all equipment used in our distribution system. And some of these replacements are, I don't have the years, I just pulled them out of my plan. I didn't, they're, cycled out so that I think the 2006 flatbed dump truck is maybe for a year after next replacement. So, but we've got a lot of equipment that, of course, we need to keep in good working order. Our distribution crews rely upon it, especially, when you have emergencies such as 10th and Oak, for example. You need to be able to respond fully equipped and ready to go. So that's a list of our equipment. And so the total, again, I think just on the equipment and stuff, I had about $5-point-some million. So there's a need for the revenue adjustments. Some I haven't touched upon is a 2A. The very first year, spent close to, I think, $2 million on water mains. And the year after that, we only spent about $410,000. Last year, we spent $1 million, which, again, typically about $1 million has been our budget on water main. And so therefore, spending the money there, while I've got water mains other places that are either undersized or they're in poor leaky condition. And the numbers that I generated here probably are maybe even just a little bit weak in the sense that I used some of our most recent data from Adams project work, but those cost per linear foot prices don't include asphalt. So, I think the next one's still. So, okay.
So as part of the rate study, we wanted to show council where we would have been if we would have implemented the full 9%. So this is just kind of, to say, here's where we should be going, where we should be. We should be going in 2020 at $14.86 for our meter fee, and the average monthly residential inside city limit bill would be about $39.98. The non-residential.
Tammy, just a question. What is it today? Because in 2019, we only did the 3%, not the 9%.
We have that.
Oh, okay.
So if you can hold
I'll
that
be
question.
patient.
Okay, be patient with me. For the non-residential, so in city limits, our rate should be going into 2020. The base meter rate again is $14.86, and the average bill is $41.86. So that's where we should be. If you look now where we actually are, in 2019, our average bill for 10,000 gallons is $33.97. So that's less than, that's about $4 less than what the rate study was saying for the residential inside city limits. The non-residential should be, or is at $34.43. So what we looked at is we looked at a cost of essentially like a cost of living adjustment. And we said, okay, if we went a 3% increase, the base meter fee would go up to $12.08. If we went with the rate study, it would put us at $12.79 for the base fee. And so that's something that we will get every month from the customer, whether, depending on how much consumption they have, we always are guaranteed that. So the monthly bill for a 3% increase would be approximately $34.96. And then if we went the 9%, it would be $37.05. And for, as comparison, then the 2020 rate should have been, if we would have been doing those increases like the study had recommended, that average bill would have been $39.98. So even though we're asking for, we're showing the 9%, we're still below what the rate study said we should have been at. And then on the non-residential inside city limits, the average bill, if we went 3%, would be $35.48. And with the 9%, $37.49.
So the 3% is what it is now. The 9%, if we would have gone to 9%, the 37.49 is it.
The 3% is actually, we are at a 3% in 2019. So this 3% is if we increase the 2019 rates by 3%, and this 9 is if we increase the 2019 rates by 9%. So this is what we would be looking at for 2020.
What are they now?
So currently, this one's at 34.43.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So currently we're at 30, what are we at?
34.43.
Where's that?
It's not on this chart, but it's, yeah. right?
Okay.
Yep. Next one, because you were looking at non-residential. So keep going. 2 more
It
slides.
was the other way. I saw that
Yeah, 2 more slides.
3443.
One more.
I saw it.
Oh,
I'm going the
other
wrong
way, other way,
way.
other way.
One more.
That's residential
That's
inside.
residential. One more.
So you want non-residential?
Yeah. There, 34.43.
So that's a commercial rate.
Right.
Go to the next one.
So this is what we're
The option
proposing
that we're
rates
looking
could be
for.
for 2020.
That's residential.
Right.
Okay.
For the next one.
What was residential now, currently, today? What's residential today?
33.97.
3397.
All right, now go back to the other one where you'd like to raise it to.
37.05.
So a buck something. If we go to 3%, $3 and something if you go to 9%.
Oh, the increase.
So I think
My
this
eyes
is
are
what you're
starting to
kind
roll
of,
here.
I
Are you
know,
playing a
but this
dice
is, I
game?
think,
What?
what you're wanting to get to.
No, it's like a shell game. What on earth are you doing?
I know,
Need
I
them all
know.
there together.
That's right.
Just an
Don't shut
observation.
my,
Throwing them all on one screen was making it even more confusing.
Just an observation. You'd make it a little easier on council if you'd given us a copy of your presentation.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
It was a work in progress, got some new folks driving the car now, and used to doing things a little differently, and we've had to relearn, so I was still kind of trying to put some finishing touches on this today as we were working on it, so
Understand.
apologize for that.
Well, so 2019 is what we have today, 33.97.
Right.
You're proposing a 9% increase for 2020 of 37 to 37.05. So it's a little $3 and some cents differential.
Correct.
And that will only net us $400,000 more.
No,
What?
the 3% rate increase does not get you
No,
the
the
300,000, extra $300,000.
The 9% does.
the 9%
said.
does,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Well, there it says right there, 308.
Mm-hmm.
I should put my glasses on. Okay. And you really think on well, 10,000 gallons per month, is that what you think an average household uses?
That is what the consultant was given when we did the rate study.
Yeah. Yeah, we're leaving that the same, so it's apples to apples comparison.
Okay, okay.
At my house, the average, we're well above the average.
Well, you're taking some of
The
my
average home
average,
doesn't have
apparently.
6 children.
Okay. All right.
You'd be surprised how many people don't even use the minimum.
Wow.
It doesn't take 6 kids to be above the
No,
average, believe me.
I've been to Walmart several times, I agree.
It's our landscaping that gets
Some-
us.
Monthly, weekly baths are fine.
Whether
Just-
you need it or not, right?
Just, I'm not on camera, am I? Okay. Yeah.
The other fees that we need to look at are the service fees that we have. These have not been increased since 2008. And so what you'll see is what they are for 2019 and what we are proposing for 2020. How these were established is we went and looked at what it's costing us to send out staff, especially after hours, to make sure that we're recovering our costs. And then you'll notice there's a little asterisk next to where it says shut off notice. We will discuss what that means in the next slide.
On this slide, what is testing of the water meters?
Every now and then, AJ Citizen disagrees with us in regards to, there was no way I used that much water. And we try our best to educate them on everything that they need to be looking for, whether it's leaky toilets or dripping faucets or, whatever. And when you still can't please them, they believe it's always the meter, that it's not registering correctly. So in the past, we have established a policy to where if they will pay for the meter test up front, then we'll come out to their house, remove the meter, put a jumper in, take that meter back to our shop where we have a calibrated test bench.
Gotcha.
We flow based upon volumes, known volumes through the meter.
Right.
And we document, we flow it at 3 different flow rates, 3 different volumes, and then we average it out. And if the test shows where it's out of tolerance, then which in my lifetime, I can't ever say we've ever had one that went the other way. Typically, these meters, they're mechanical devices, and over time, as they wear out, they begin to actually slow down. And so when all of a sudden you're running a 1/4 gallon a minute, the meter's not even moving.
Right.
And
Right.
it generally fails in favor of the property owner. So, again, we try to do our best because my water distribution supervisor is really great about talking to the folks because, he's got enough experience with these that sees where it's, they're throwing good money after bad. But
Right.
at $35, some people
why
would
not?
do it. And, but in talking with my water distribution supervisor, again, to go to the residents, remove the meter, put the jumper in, take it back to the shop, bench test it, then take it back out, remove the jumper, put it back in place. It's right about 2 hours worth of work.
I don't think I could get a plumber to put a jumper in for $135.
We would hope you wouldn't. That's called tampering.
Well, just talking about the magnitude of the cost here, not the legality
Yeah.
of doing something like it, just the magnitude of the cost.
Understood. And so that's what that test fee is for.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions on the fees on this page? So one thing we would like to discuss with council is the way that we are notifying customers that they are at risk of being disconnected for non-payment. So right now, what happens is we bill you on the 26th of the month. Your bill goes out. It's due the 25th of the following month. If you haven't paid it, we go ahead and put new charges on. Then you're charged a late fee, so then you receive another bill that shows your current charges plus your past due. That same day, we also generate a late notice that says you're 30 days or you're past due. You need to send us, your payment. And then around the 10th of the month, we go out and we print stickers, put them, these lovely stickers, and put them on these bright pink door hangers. And we send the water distribution technicians out, and they tag people's doors. This is taking us, we have approximately 100 door hangers that we do every month. It's taking 2 employees basically all day to get all those door hangers on. And it also lets everybody know in the neighborhood that, oh, guess what? So-and-so didn't pay their bill, because it's very bright pink. And then a few days later, we go ahead and issue the disconnect notices or the disconnect service order if the customers have not paid. What we would like to do is change our process where we bill you the first month where it shows, your current charges. If you haven't paid, then again, you'll get a notice that has your current charges plus your past due on it. There'll be a late message printed on the statement itself. And then instead of sending you that same day a delinquent notice, we'll wait until the 5th of the month and send you that delinquent notice, which we refer to them as our red letter because it is printed in red. We'll send it out on the 5th. And then that gives them approximately 10 days to pay. And then we want to go ahead and just issue the disconnect service order at that point. This does a couple things. It frees up our service technicians to actually be doing some of the other field work that they need to be doing. And it also eliminates essentially the public embarrassment that some of the customers are, experiencing, because they don't necessarily like to get that bright pink flyer on their door. So, and by doing it this way, we will not have to increase that shut-off late notice fee. If we don't, we do need to increase it because the $10 is not covering our costs.
The other thing it does, it kind of removes our staff from what could be sometimes confrontational situations. I know we share stories with you in regards to, them showing up to hang the door hanger and stuff, and someone comes to the door and, obviously they're upset and get confrontational. And so it's just, if we can eliminate that situation altogether, it's still not going to end good if they don't pay, because we'll just show up and turn the water off and leave. But, that's what we're doing right now anyway.
Mm-hmm. And to inform the community of what we would, about this change, we would put a notice in the bill for, we could actually get it in there for October, November, December, and have it effective in January. So we could give them, a few months' notice of this process is changing. It doesn't actually apply to everybody in the community because some people never receive that pink notice, or the door hangers, they don't receive them, others do. But it would be at least communicated to them, and we would also put it on social media to make sure that we did communicate with the community. But that is a big a big item.
Yeah, door
That's fine.
hangers seem like the old school way of doing things. It's probably time to move on from that, be a little more modern and respectful of privacy. That's a big issue,
Mhm.
you know.
What do you need us to say, go ahead tonight, or do you want a full council, or? I mean,
Is that an ordinance change?
I
Let's see,
don't,
pro-
it's just, I think, our internal policy, our practice, it's basically our,
Yeah, it's in the municipal code, so I'm sure it would have to be changed through ordinance.
for the door hangers,
We'd have to bring it back to council
Yeah.
at a
Okay.
regular meeting.
but we're not changing the fee.
Oh, that's
We're not changing a
the
fee, we're
just
changing a
the method.
process. And I think the process is
You're right.
not covered in the code.
No, it isn't.
And
So it's a
so,
policy
we just, yeah, we just want, council to be aware that we'd like to change that policy or that practice and be able to go for
Okay.
it.
Could you put that on a one-page letter, get it to the rest of the council, so that, we- you
Yeah,
know?
we'll find a way to get it to council at a public meeting and,
Okay.
Yep.
And if they don't respond, just shut their water off? No. I'm just kidding. Okay, yeah.
Real life,
the real-
hands-on learning.
Well, the appropriate thing to do would be to put it on a letter explaining to council so that we can explain later on, so.
yeah, we'll do it in a public fashion.
Okay, great.
So that, I think, kind of wraps it up for the water rate discussion portion of the meeting. Be happy to answer any more questions, though, you might have.
Oh, go ahead, John.
So essentially, you're telling council, you're advising council of the magnitude of the repair problems that we're facing. We know that we do have failing pipes throughout the city. The recent one is a pretty good example. That was a 12-inch, wasn't it?
It was,
Yeah. And that was 12-inch cast iron
correct.
that essentially just broke.
Yeah, it had it fractured longitudinally about 9 feet, and once they kind of were able to pull the earth away from it, about half the pipeline fell out.
Right, right. The, let me go at a tangent here a little bit, and then we'll get back to my main question, which is really what we're being asked to look at tonight. But when I lived in Grand Junction, the city required all users to install an anti-hammer device, essentially a little surge tank on their house system to prevent water hammer. Have you looked at that? Do we know what are you aware of the technical?
I know some people have had to put in expansion tanks, especially after we have installed a dual check valve on their service line. Of course, without that dual check valve, that water hammer is never really noticed because it reverberates back into the distribution system.
Right,
As soon as we put that check valve in, that stops that.
yes,
And then they start hearing the banging inside the house.
right.
And, where they've never had it before. And of course, we get a call saying, hey, you messed up my water. And the dual check valves are a requirement of Reg 11, which are the Colorado primary drinking water regulations that we have to follow. All service taps have to be protected in some manner. And so
backflow.
as far as making it a requirement, I mean,
Oh,
that may lie more in the uniform plumbing code.
as I understand it, the issue is that, so if you open up your faucet wide in your house and shut it off, you get water hammer in the pipes.
Sure.
That travels back into our system.
Yeah, and of course, the larger the pipe, the
Right.
greater the water
The
hammer.
force. The force that you can, that can be exerted. And so I don't know that it's a good idea or even how it falls out, but the tanks are $30, $40, $50 to buy, and if you do it yourself, you can save some bucks, but if you have a plumber do it, you're looking at a $50 probably service call or something like that.
Yeah.
But that, having the anti-water hammer expansion tanks on all of the residences would lengthen the service life of our system, would it not?
I guess in theory, like I
In
say,
theory.
you would see less of it. Again, with the majority of the system being 3/4-inch taps, I'd be more concerned about it on maybe the larger taps.
Larger taps, the effects of water hammer there.
Mhm.
Okay, so thank you for that information. So tonight, you're asking us, or advising council that, gee whiz, we still have our capital problem, it's not going away. We could be looking at expending significant dollars in emergency capital repairs, or just repairs. Significant dollars in repairs. For instance, how much did our last water leak cost us?
I've got my water distribution supervisor. We're working with Cartograph and going through a kind of a learning curve with that.
Yeah.
And I'll have that data for you. I don't have it right now.
Do you have a guess, an idea?
Oh, I bet it from previous experience in my lifetime back being the water distribution supervisor and trying to hand calculate cost them leaks out, I bet we're looking at a $10,000, $12,000 repair, easy with asphalt.
Well, plus the time of our residents who went without water.
The inconvenience to those folks, you
Right.
bet, plus, you know, the not only inconveniences, but some of them had water seeping into their place.
Right, because of the leak.
Yeah. And I guess most of all, what we were just trying to talk to council about was, again, we paid for this rate study in 2017. I know Adam and I've both been around where we've been through previous rate studies. And something might happen that very first year, and then the next year is, well, this is no time for a water rate increase, or, you know, not now. And so therefore, we just paid $60-some thousand to a consultant to give us their best recommendation on what we should be doing, and then we don't follow it.
Before we raised rates in 2018, when was the last time, do you remember, that we had raised rates before that?
I got them ordinances in a file drawer. I can get you that information. I'd be,
I'm sure we talked about it back in
Yeah.
2017, but it's been a while.
yeah, I don't think it was in the really too far distant past that we had
Okay.
done rate adjustments.
Well, I certainly know that the cost of our bids that keep coming in, I mean, they're rising with inflation every year. They keep getting in higher than we expect, and we even just to keep up with the basic
Yeah.
cost of living, we're gonna have to attend to, but I don't know what your feelings are. It's hard to make it an advisement for moving forward because we're missing so many of council, but
Well, quite frankly, I anticipated having this discussion again, maybe the 21st.
Yeah, we
But
could talk more about this at the end of the presentation, but our intent tonight was to get direction on whether to draft an ordinance that would go with the proposed budget approval. So depending on how you guys feel tonight, that would be our direction to bring to full council.
Right, and those ordinance aren't going to go until November
Right,
18th. So we have the public hearing for the budget on the 21st.
right.
First reading is the second meeting in November, and then second reading will be that first meeting in December.
okay. Yeah, so basically I see a common theme. The water main upgrades are 75 million plus, stormwater is 160-something million, our streets are in the 160 million. It's just continually of our predecessors have not been meeting our needs from way back then, and we're still paying.
Yeah, and these
The
kind of costs
Price of
never
those
go
things,
down.
yeah, the cost keeps going up, and the damage and the wear and tear are continuing, and to have those water breaks on the 10th. By the way, we do want to make sure that there's a public thank you to those folks who worked through the night.
Oh.
They really were pretty amazing and fantastic, and we appreciate their hard work.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
they've always been good about responding, and I think we were on that one really quick. I mean, again, I know it caused a big mess, and we tried to clean it up as much as we could. I know we went back, cleaned driveways, tried to help that way, had street sweepers running. Unfortunately, I think 10th and Oak is a good area for 2A work.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the fellows really appreciated you bringing them out I believe you brought them out some
Put some donuts.
donuts out.
That was
and-
from all of City Council. We
Yep.
were all aware of what they were doing and
Yeah.
what was happening, and we really were grateful. And I was able to witness firsthand that they weren't grumbling or moaning, but they were like, we got to take care of our people.
Yeah.
This is what we're here for. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And that post actually made it on the Fremont County chant and rave or whatever,
Right.
which is usually so negative. But the comments in there were very appreciative
Oh, good.
of the local folks thanking and recognizing that they were working hard and doing the best they could.
Oh, good. Appreciate that, hearing that too.
But no, we're not going to pave it with 2A until you replace the water line.
That's one of the Centurion clubs. Well, I imagine we do need an ordinance.
Right.
The question will be what the feeling of council is on how much that rate increase
Sure.
will need to be
Okay.
responsible to the future of Canyon City and our water, and that's one of the basic jobs of our city government, is providing good water and dependable water service.
Yeah, and I know last time I looked around at rates of the surrounding area from Salida to Westcliff to Florence, Park Center, Pueblo, Fountain. There was only one other entity who had cheaper water rates than us, and that was the Board of Water Works Pueblo. Everybody else rates were higher than ours. Plus, we got a great quality of water.
Yeah, I was going to say ours tastes better.
Ours totally tastes better, yeah. One of the best parts about living here. Okay, are we ready to move on to stormwater then?
No, but go ahead.
So just to clarify, basically, we're saying, yes, prepare an ordinance. Council's going to have to chew on it, so the exact percentage. But the numbers are pretty daunting. The task is pretty, it appears insurmountable from here. And we know that we're in this position because of previous councils did not take the action to make sure that the wheels are staying greased and that we're moving forward. And so we're kind of paying the piper. It's going to be up to us to really pay the piper. So
The Centurion Club, Piper Club?
exactly. So if we can just work it out so that the 4 leaving council people are the ones that vote on this.
Mayor doesn't get a vote, by the way.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
I'd vote on it.
And I'll just reiterate for our future meeting when we talk about this, that it is really helpful for us to have this information beforehand so that we can study it and go through it and be prepared for that meeting. You doing okay down there, Tammy?
Just a real quick technical question. So on the projections where we have a constant 9% increase, is that 9% on the base rate?
Yes, base rate and volume rates.
No, you're misunderstanding my question. Okay, my question is, the 2021 9%, is that 9% of the previous year's rates or 9% of the 2017 rates?
Previous years.
Previous year.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, let's go to our next favorite subject, stormwater.
Yay. So a little background on stormwater. Again, it was studied in the same study as the water in 2017. Recommendation was similar as far as the 9% increase in revenue for 5 years. They did give 6 different scenarios at that time that were mainly different in how much was cash funded versus debt funded or a combination of, and whether it was phased or not. And the worst case scenario, if I remember right off the top of my head, was the cash fund, 100% cash fund up front, which was like a 1,500% increase in fees. And what was chosen at the time, I know because we were having a lot of discussion about the stormwater utility and formation and those sorts of things at the time. City Council chose to go with the status quo, with just an increase for stabilization, because at that time we were completely out of any kind of capital funding. Our reserves were spent down, and so that was basically a 100% increase in fees at that time. And then shortly thereafter, we decided to borrow the funds for the $8 million capital project, and that was the second increase that was done in 2019. Previous to this, I believe the rates were only changed twice since 2005 with the formation of the utility. So we have a couple scenarios to look at. You want to go through those, Tammy? You want me to? Yeah?
Whatever you'd like.
So we're basically presenting you three different options tonight to look at and get some direction for. So the first option, there's been a discussion recently about our vac truck. The vac truck we have was purchased used from the sanitation district when we got it. So it was in usable shape, but pretty poor shape when we started out with it. And it goes through a fair amount of repairs every year. Usually it needs a repair right when we need it, like right now. We have some work that is pending. It's repairs, so, and it's not a cheap piece of machinery to repair. And so we've started looking at maybe whether we need to replace that vac truck and what it would cost. We also know that one of the issues with the original formation of the utility, the rates that originally were discussed talked about some full-time employees that would do strictly stormwater work. And we know with the cost, the significant investment of a new vac truck, it's a piece of machinery that could work every day all year and currently doesn't. One, because it's under repair, or because the crews are busy doing other stuff, because those are the same crews, the street crews that we use for everything else that run that equipment. So, but at the time we didn't choose to have a rate that would support full-time employees like that. So this option here is simply the purchase of a new vac truck, or lease purchase of a new vac truck, and adding 2 full-time employees that would run that vac truck. And again, those would be 2 dedicated maintenance employees that would run that. We looked into whether this is something that could be contracted out, and there really isn't this type of vendor in this area that can do the amount of volume of work that we have that would be interested in coming to Kansas City and doing this, having that, big pieces of expensive equipment. So,
Adam, have we
yeah.
done the tests around town to see if there
Right,
is a
so
need that they could be used?
Yeah, so we've checked some out. We've, in particular, like, for example, the storm sewer on 12th Street where we're doing the street improvement, it did need cleaned out. We cleaned it out. But our biggest issue on the flooding issues we have is capacity beyond even if we had some of our smaller systems cleaned. That's definitely part of the equation, but simply just having the truck and cleaning what we have and keeping it clean would not solve our drainage problems.
Will it help?
It will help, but I don't believe it would be significant to the point where we're talking about solving some of the bigger flooding issues that we have.
Would it help enough to justify the purchase of the vac truck and 2 full-time employees?
Yes. Part of the thing and also part of the thing is that we're mandated to take care of our stuff as well. It's not just because it's a nice thing to do. We're also mandated, and we fall behind on that all the time. Like I said, this is something that would be cleaning our stormwater BMPs and inlets all the time, where right now it's just reactionary. So it would definitely cut down a lot on some of that deferred maintenance that we have that then is more of a nuisance. I live in East Canyon, and the street I live on has been running water down the street all week because some culvert is plugged somewhere. And so that just further degrades the street. If it's wintertime, then you have issues with it freezing on the road and those sorts of things. So it's a very small piece of our capital problem, but it's something definitely we need to get on top of, or those things that we're not taking care of and keeping clear, we're just going to be getting added to our capital list. Kind of along the same lines as the water line stuff.
Well, and our new pipes that we are getting in and that we've got the funding for, they need to be maintained regularly as well.
Yeah.
Is this another example of our progenitors not adhering to good practices of maintenance for our citizens?
Absolutely. I mean, this is just, we're just not keeping up on it. Again, everything is reactionary at this point, and it doesn't say a lot to the public when they do pay a fee and expect a service, and we don't provide it in its fullest.
Just briefly, how does the vac truck work?
So it does two things, basically. It jets the pipes, so it cleans through them, and then picks up the material and sucks the material out of the pipes or the inlets into a holding tank, and then that's hauled off. But that's basically the two things it does, is it basically jets through. It's like a giant rotor-rooter.
Right.
You can put cutting tool attachments on it, run it through, and then you suck up that material that's loosened.
But you have to, that has to be washed out to some point, is that correct? Out of the
Right,
pipe?
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep. The bigger the truck, the bigger the tank, the more work you can do without having to make trips back and forth, just like a street sweeper. You buy a smaller street sweeper, you got to make more trips back to the dump,
Right.
kind of thing. So that's option A, which is basically just an expansion of our service. Option B would be just a cost of service increase based on the rate study. And essentially what it would do is give us a little bit of capital project dollars annually that we no longer have. Currently, the only money that we have for that is the money we've borrowed. In the past, we'd have a few $100,000 to do small things with that weren't significant projects, but it might be a couple blocks worth of culvert we could replace. Sometimes we could do it in-house. Again, some of it was reactionary. We have the 2A projects going on where we have some stormwater stuff that has to be paid for out of the utility, not out of 2A. This is basically what that would do if we raise this little bit of money. So this 9%, it basically gets us that $150,000 a year, and that's how it would be used. Those smaller things, and to take care of any other inflationary costs that come up.
And previously, you said there was a couple $100,000 that could be spent, but that was because there were actually kind of, as I understand it, it was like the city was doing a cash infusion into.
The general fund was subsidizing with labor and equipment, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the accountant said, no more of that.
Right.
Fix that.
Right.
Yeah.
Appropriately so.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's option B, and then option C is essentially a combination of the two. It'd be the 9% plus the truck and 2 full-time employees. That gives us another $400,000 a year, increases the average residential to $3.40 by $3.40, and commercial by $17.50. So again, we can do the same thing we talked about with water. We can prepare an ordinance and give the different options, and council can consider. I guess I'm interested in your guys' feedback on either of these options, none of these options, a different option. Yeah, there's a combination of the different options.
And so council is aware, under option A, the average bill for residential would be $15.80. For commercial, it would be $81.42. Under option B, residential is $14.86. Commercial is $76.53. Option C, residential is $17.03. and commercial is $87.72.
Any inclinations from,
Well, I think it's the same answer that we're coming to on the other question is that I believe it's our obligation as a city council and individual city council members to look at what the cost of our services that we provide to the citizens are and to properly operate the system so that we don't get into constant breakdowns and emergency response that actually ends up costing you more in the long run than dealing with a particular issue. We're not gonna solve some of the really large capital requirements for stormwater, but we can, by considering these, the possibility of an A, B, or C rate increase, look at making what we have work better and reducing, to some extent, the impact of stormwater, water going where we don't want it to go, through the year.
right, and we do need to think about this responsibly. And I also want to just put out there, there's been a lot of talk through the election about the city going into debt for stormwater. And I just wanted to make a clarification and make it clear that a common thread tonight has been a long legacy of neglect of our water department and our stormwater system. The stormwater system, there's two parts to it. This EPA directed by the federal government that we have to adhere to or go through incredible fines from the EPA, which the Colorado Springs is experiencing now, which is incredibly costly. And then there's also the part of preventing the flooding that so many of our citizens are experiencing. And they're experiencing it so much so that at least when Mayor and I got into city council, and you've probably experienced some of this as well, we were facing some pretty legitimate cases for litigation. And one ditch company in particular already had hired an attorney from Denver and had the litigation already printed and ready to hand out if city council didn't finally start addressing this issue. And that's part of the reason why we had to finally buckle down and do something. And do something now, because they weren't the only ones who were ready to bring out the lawyers. Our town hall was filled with angry citizens wanting something to be done. And it took some leadership to happen, and it was a great sacrifice and something that we had to think very carefully about. And when we go to talk about this, probably sounds like in November, it'll still be, it's a somber conversation, but this again is the basic needs for our community. I don't know if I could stomach part C, but I do know that we do have to address the basic needs of our community. Mayor, do you have any words?
Well, yeah, since I'm a short timer, I've been in business all my life. Big companies, small companies. I don't know how government gets here. I wish I could answer that question. I've been involved with this government for 10 years, 6 years in the planning commission, almost 4 years as mayor. It's not your fault. I don't know how we get here. But I got to tell you, if my copier's going out, my company puts aside money to get it fixed. We are now confronted with some astronomical numbers. How on earth did that happen? What happened? Doesn't government think that way? Someone's going to do some belt tightening. If you get $39 million a year, I don't think you should be spending it. I think maybe $9 million of that should be put aside. Something. Someone's going to have to give, or we're going to be nothing more than reactionary. I don't know how on earth, honest to goodness, for 45 years I've run a company, or a company for somebody. I've never seen this happen. I don't even know what your answer is other than you're getting money and you better be putting stuff aside for this, and I don't know how you're going to do it.
Well, if I might chime in, just from my experience working for the city, I've seen where we get new councils aboard and they take us off in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And, what were the concerns and the priorities of the former council are no longer that way. These folks are seeing things in a different way and want to take us this way. And so where, I mean, I don't know, maybe you've had several different owners or bosses who, you know, at your businesses, but with the way city government works and the changes in council and stuff, the having that consistency or that same type of understanding, I guess. I mean, again, I can remember we had a rate study done before the last one and had a new council member come in and say, nope, now is not the time to raise rates.
And I agree, and I do know, though, there is income coming to the city that I think should be sequestered in a fund to prepare for this. I think if a portion of it, if it's $1 million a year, let's say it goes to stormwater, city budget should be retracted by $1 million, and that should be put away as matching funds. I think you can do it, and so you're going to have to. This cannot continue to go on. And I have 82 days left.
You're counting them down? We
No, I
better
was,
make them
no,
really good
I'm
82
not.
days.
I'm actually gonna miss it. My heart goes out to it. I just don't know. I will, for the rest of my life, be amazed at how on earth do we get at a $300 million bill that we're gonna have to try to choke on. I don't get it. I couldn't, you know, I don't know. I wish
Well,
I did.
I think that's one of the arguments towards going towards a regional district, because it takes the politics out of it, and that, so every time there's election, the wind changes direction, and it ebbs and flows on what the priorities are or how the funding's done, where if it's a stormwater district, there's only one job, and that is to tackle stormwater, and to do it
Right.
efficiently, and to have 100% attention on getting all the grant money and anything else you can to make it happen.
But it
And-
smacks and feels like an unmandated mandate by federal and state. The water is going to land in Canyon City. It's going to run to the Arkansas. Period. It's the same damn water that goes into the forest. Excuse my language. I'm sick and tired of them saying that we need to do this, we need to do that. It's a small town. We can't afford it, but it's their requirement.
You know,
We're
it's,
supposed to stop it and take care of it by a multi-million-dollar project to do what? To make it more efficient to get to the river. Big deal.
well, instead of making it easier on small cities, what they're actually doing is they're actually going to be starting to make even smaller cities like Florence adhere to the same standards. It's just going even
That's-
harder.
I would rather say,
Yeah, it's
let
really
it come to the
difficult.
river and let's fix our water lines and see what the feds say. I know what it costs my friend in Colorado Springs, who is the mayor, that's $550 million.
550 million?
That's the lien, that's the judgment that I think the federal government is assessing Colorado Springs.
And that's because they were not proactive. They
Well,
did not
it's
have a
too- well.
proactive part of what they were trying to
The
do.
general feeling is if you keep plugging away at it, they'll probably leave you alone. They voted out their stormwater fee altogether.
Right,
Within milliseconds, the federal government sued them.
right.
That's what's going to happen. I think that there would be mercy involved if you do the best you can, and that's what we're talking about. It's the best we can.
Well, and I think that's an important message as we bring the budget forward, is that we just want the bare minimum to get by on the clean water, to keep out of trouble, and to provide, you know, be responsible to the Arkansas River. But what we're really focusing on are those things that we have responsibility for with the flooding.
Aren't you glad you asked?
I am glad. You only have 82 days for your.
Don't say
your
that.
wisdom. Yeah.
Someone had mentioned that. I was talking to a
Make it
meeting, and
good.
someone said that. I didn't know if they were happy or sad.
Well, I'm just grateful for the city council for taking this seriously, and these are some, like I said, basic responsibilities of the government and services that when people say they want to see their taxpayer money spent efficiently and wisely, I think this is part of it, is making sure that we are giving them something for the money that they're investing back into our city. And we're those stewards that have to make sure that we're being as wise and judicious as we can for it. Do we have anything else for today?
I'd like to ask if there's anybody in the audience who'd
Looks
like
like
to
there is somebody who'd like to make a
come up to
comment.
the
Come up, yeah.
podium, please.
Thank
Tim.
you.
I thought you were just trying out your arms, Tim.
Yeah, it's been,
I need it. It's been warm lately.
It has been.
The rate increase, what's the square footage that's based on, the monthly increase? Is that 5,000 square feet?
Yeah, I think it's a little over 3,000, but we can provide that.
3,000?
Yeah, at the next meeting, yeah.
Because right now, my property, I'm at 7,500, and my monthly rate is about $30 a month for stormwater. And I don't know where it ends, you know. The stormwater, it started at 60 million, and now you're saying it's 160 million. Next year, it could be 200 million, you know. I mean, it just, where does this end? Just keep charging and charging and charging. We're just not getting anywhere with it. And it's hard on folks, you know. I don't know what the answer is, except for eliminating it altogether. But
well, and that's another thing is that there's a small population that's paying for all of this, and if we had that regional district, it would help distribute some of that responsibilities to other people who are contributing towards, that we're paying for their contribution towards the stormwater contamination. And they need to be a part of that solution too.
you know, if I
We
had
can't rely on
known,
us to solve it. It's impossible. We can't ask that of our citizens to take it all on.
yeah, if I had known in 1992 when I built my house, I wouldn't have poured as much concrete as I did. You know, I had a driveway that was more mud than and weeds, and putting weed killer down, and so the fix was concrete. And a drainage plan for my property when I built it and everything. And I don't have a flooding problem, but, you know, some people may, but, you know, I just wish there was a more, where everybody could maybe share the cost equally instead of basing it on square footage of impervious surface. I just wish there was an easier way to.
Tim, there was a discussion at length on just assess everybody the same dollar amount. And that's what Colorado Springs did. Everybody got like a $5 charge, and they voted that out. You could do that, I suppose, figure it out. What do you want to spend a year, divide it into a number of households, and everybody gets charged $20 out the door. And that could be done too,
Is
or
that,
more.
that's what the Springs ended up doing?
I don't know what they're doing now.
I think that's what they did. I
Yeah,
mean,
theirs is
it was
tiered
based
now,
on a
yeah.
acreage or something. You
Yeah.
get charged by
It's tiered.
a flat
It's
rate,
tiered.
basically.
And it all ends up at the same place. That I do think that there will be some mercy granted if you're working in good faith. They got to understand a town of 16,400 people can't afford to do what they would like us to do, and I think they would stay away from us. But it's not going to happen. You quit doing it, and ask the mayor. Within months, as I understand, it was $550 million they had to pay for.
So Tim, thank you for your comments. It's important for us to have the face of the citizen before us, knowing that the decisions that we will potentially be making, it affects you and the bills that you pay each and every month. And so thank you for being here to
Yeah, so if it's,
represent
you
them.
know, if it's based on 3, then my rate's gonna go up $9 if C's proposed. You know, I'll be $40 a month, and my water bill's $4, water usage. Or my meter's $11 or $12, you know, so it's, I don't know where it's gonna end, you know, it just, anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully a little bit of solutions at a time. At least we're doing something.
Yep. So my son will be losing his basketball court tomorrow. No, I hope he's not listening.
Tear it up.
We do.
You're taking down your impervious surface.
Yeah, he can play in the mud.
Do you have any final comments for us, Ryan? or-
Not on water or stormwater. Bob did submit a department update for the water departments. I don't know if you have any questions for him or. beyond what we've already discussed.
That I
But-
think I got in the mail early enough.
Yeah, I saw it in the email. Did you have anything you want to say about the state of the water department? And
I just tried to give you folks some data on what we've done this year, so.
that was a
I
lengthy
wasn't,
list.
I wasn't sure what to provide you with, so. Never had to do an update like that before, so if you found it useful, I'll continue to try to work in that direction, or if you'd rather see something else, let me know.
Any comments from council?
And what, I haven't seen it, but I appreciate what all of you do there, all through the panel here as well. What, can you say at what capacity, or are we functioning at 50% of possible capacity, or is that even a question to be asked?
Well, as far as capacity of the facilities and
Yeah.
stuff?
Is it we,
Put it in perspective, the water treatment plant, as it is today, can produce about 13.75 million gallons a day. If we were to push the filtration rates up a little bit to the state-approved limit, we could get to a 22 million gallon capacity day. In 2018, we did about 5 million gallons a day on average.
okay.
Our peak, right around 9 million, so still plenty of capacity at the plant. Plenty of capacity on the distribution system for storage. If we have all the tanks completely full, 18.9 million gallons. So, and we do pay close attention to that because, I mean, I know it's a concern I've had with discussions with some of our citizens about the fact that the Arkansas River is our sole source. We have some backup to get us by a few days if we couldn't pump out of the river, and history has shown that, not that it's not impossible, but never really had any issues in getting water out of the Arkansas on a daily basis. So capacity-wise, we're doing fine.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. We are talking about in the 2020 budget to add another tap at the bulk water station.
Yes.
Do you feel like that's going to help address some of the long lines and issues that they're having there?
Well, I can't help but think it will. In looking at the data there, the main use of the station is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And this crunch we run into is basically for maybe 3 or 4 weeks of the year. I will tell you this, the last 3 years has been on a record pace, though. Personally, I think it has to do with the legalization of the marijuana and the hemp, especially the hemp. I've got a few bulk water haulers who are specifically hauling water for that. So yeah, it is in the budget to put a second loading station in. Be smaller capacity. We would set it up to take care of the folks who have the 200, 400 gallon tanks in the back of a pickup truck or on a trailer. The existing station we would keep set up for our commercial bulk water haulers. We can open up the flow rate on that station. Right now, I think we've got it neck down to around 200 gallons a minute. We could fix that and raise it up to, the reason we had to cut it back is the force of that water coming out. A lot of our smaller tanks and the way the folks had their piping plumbed, it kind of wrecked it. And so, but if it's just going to be for the commercial haulers, we can increase the flow out of there, which will help speed that up.
Right, and that's an opportunity for the water department to add revenue too, is that correct?
I'm not sure that it's, I mean, the revenue, I think, will continue on an upward trend as long as this legalization goes on. Plus, of course, the county is allowing more and more 35-acre folks to build on a cistern. And so, seeing additional growth there. But just because we're putting in the second station, I don't think it's going to attract more usage, just what would normally come anyway.
It's more of a quality of life upgrade to get people through the lines faster.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I understand it. I mean, like for commercial water haulers, they're paying an employee to go to that station and load up. Well, they're sitting in line for 45 minutes to an hour just waiting for their turn to load up, and, you know, that's costing them money. I understand that, so try to be sensitive to that as well. A second station, of course, helps with redundancy in the sense you have an issue, a piece of equipment failure at one, you still have the other one to back you up. But it does, obviously, it'll come at a cost, but I think the especially with the higher rate increase that maybe would be contemplated, that it would pay for itself over a 5-year period easily. So that would help there. The other issue we had, I know there were complaints about access to being able to put money on their account and stuff. I know Ryan and I have talked about it. In 2016, council approved a second position for me up there at the water distribution shop. Previous administration changed that around, removed that. So I only have basically one person there at the water distribution shop who takes care of the bulk water customers. And, you know, she has always done a good job about notifying folks and letting them know when, you know, access as far as to be able to make payments is restricted. But, you know, it's not a great thing all of the time. And so having a second person up there will be nice to have someone else there to assist with those bulk water customer service duties, and as well as hopefully be a succession plan for me for one of our long-term employees there. I know we talked about folks being able to pay with a credit card. We could upgrade our software to a cloud-based version that the manufacturer of the station uses. However, there's additional costs in that, which I'm not sure the benefit would be there. Almost close to about $4,200 a year increase just for upgrading software so people could go online and pay with a credit card. Ryan and I have talked about, you know, maybe getting a point and pay terminal like we have down at City Hall, so folks could use a credit card there at the shop. And that would certainly, in 2019 so far, I think we've had a little over 400 customer interactions where people have come in and either opened up a new account or put money on an existing account. And you know, that they don't, in the wintertime, of course, it's less. In the summertime, it always picks up, and when you need it the most. And so there's some options there that could be considered, but it's going to be a little bit of a cost factor. But getting the second dispensing station in would definitely help the long wait lines.
Okay, well, I did appreciate the report. It really gives me an understanding of what you and your staff are obviously incredibly busy accomplishing every year, and the high value that you give us, so thank you.
Well, I'm glad it was informative for you, and I'll maintain it along those lines.
But so just a word of caution, we don't want the tail wagging the dog here. I mean, we don't want you reporting just for reporting's sake. You know, the something like this, almost once, maybe twice a year is kind of like the appropriate frequency.
Sure.
Because, you know, there's.
Well, it's data I'm collecting anyway, so.
Right, but nonetheless, if you were doing it monthly, it'd be a real pain.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do it monthly.
Yeah, we don't want you to waste your time on that.
Right.
All right, are we good? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.